While many people accuse the 1929 stock market crash to be the cause of the Great Depression, it simply isn't the case. Stock markets and other areas of the economy can and do crash periodically, but economic activity resumes in a short period of time. By December of 1929, the stock market had stabilized. There were no major bank or business failures, and while unemployment had increased, it was nowhere near its eventual peak of 25% in 1933. A recession? Maybe, but definitely not a depression. So what happened that made the stock market crash turn into a lost decade of economic reduction? Through resources such as the Foundation for Economic Education and the essay Great Myths of the Great Depression, written by Lawrence W. Reed, one can see that the Great Depression was a result of large centralized banking and the federal government interfering in the economy without a clue as to what would help and what would hurt. This will be seen through a summary of the two main figures. Firstly, we have President Hoover, who was not laissez-faire as some may consider him. He destroyed the economy by making all the wrong moves, increasing government spending by 50% in just 4 years. Probably the most well-known work from the Hoover administration was the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930. Tariffs were raised on various products from the Fordey-McCumber rate of 38.5% to 41.14%. The global economy was in a downturn, and the pressure on foreign leaders to retaliate was enormous, and retaliate they did. As usual, when one country passes increased tariffs, other countries are sure to follow. U.S. imports, exports, and overall world trade decreased, each by over 60%. Adding to all this, Congress then passed and Hoover signed the Revenue Act of 1932, doubling the income tax. The effects of Hoover's economic policies are reflected in the GDP decline of 26.7%. Unemployment rates reached 25%, and even schools shut down. So it's no wonder that people turn to our second player in these disastrous events, President Roosevelt. But unfortunately for the people, Roosevelt was just as bad as Hoover, if not worse, following the same economic policies implemented by Hoover and then some. Why wasn't the Depression followed by a rigorous recovery like every other cycle? Roosevelt's New Deal violated the most basic economic principles by suppressing competition and setting prices and wages in many sectors well above their normal levels. If it weren't for these anti-market policies, the economy probably could have gone back to normal by the mid-1930s. The goal of the New Deal was to get Americans back to work, but the New Deal didn't restore employment. In fact, there was even less work on average during the New Deal than before Roosevelt took office. He would institute massive expansion of the federal government through countless acts, boards, commissions, and administrations, and despite his massive intrusion into the economy, the unemployment rate averaged a staggering 17.2% for the decade. Tax rates went up along with the federal debt and federal budget. The most damaging policies were those at the heart of the recovery plan, including the National Industrial Recovery Act, which tossed aside the nation's antitrust acts and limited productivity and imposed over 500 codes, which prevented business competition. Of course, all of this was made so much worse through the Federal Reserve's inflation of the currency, putting more dollars into circulation instead of gold that was used as the reserve at the time. This created a molehill into a mountain, leading to the famous bank panics, raising interest rates, and reducing the money supply by a staggering 27%. The bottom line is between the Federal Reserves, Hoover, and Roosevelt, the people of the 1930s were taking economic fire from all sides. And what can we take from this? Wholesale government intervention can and does deliver the most unintended consequence, interfering with market forces, trying to set prices, preventing worthless companies from failing, and preventing resources from being redeployed viably.